Have you ever been so deep in a problem that you start becoming, how shall I say this lovingly, absolutely unhinged? Like suddenly you're not just trying to solve the problem, you are the problem. You're eating the problem for breakfast. You're brushing your teeth while mentally arguing over the problem. You're trying to fall asleep while your brain is in the corner with a whiteboard string and a concerning amount of intensity. That was me during my childcare search. By the end of it, I was no longer just trying to hire support from my family. I was refreshing applications like a raccoon digging through the trash at 2 a.m. And I say that with love towards myself, but this is what happens when we're so committed to an outcome that we forget we're human beings. We start calling it grit. We start calling it discipline. We start calling it, I'm just not going to give up. And sometimes, yes, that's true. But sometimes what we're calling determination is actually dysregulation in a blazer. Sometimes what we're calling focus is actually fear with a spreadsheet. And sometimes what we're calling persistence is actually our nervous system gripping to the steering wheel so tightly that we can't receive any new information. And this is why today, as we close out this week on pivoting, I want to talk about the self-care required to pivot. Because pivoting is not just a strategy. It's not just change up the marketing, post in a new place, change the offer, adjust the plan. Those are all important, but underneath every successful pivot is a nervous system with enough space to perceive the next right move. And that matters because clarity usually doesn't arrive while we're strangling the life out of the problem. Annoying, I know. I would personally love for clarity to arrive while I'm hunched over my laptop, sleep deprived, over-caffeinated, manically determined, and muttering, I will solve you if that's the last thing I do. But clarity is rude like that, and after 7 weeks of trying, interviewing, getting rejected, getting insulted, getting ghosted, and nearly letting the nanny Facebook industrial complex take me down, someone in my community gave me the advice to take 24 to 48 hours completely away from the problem. No ruminating, no researching, no refreshing. Put it down. And at first, it could feel impossible because when we've been really caring so much about something for so long, putting it down can feel almost like betrayal. It can feel like if we stop thinking about it, we're no longer committed. If we rest, we're giving up. If we loosen our grip, the whole thing is going to fall apart. But the truth is, rest is not the opposite of commitment. Rest is often what allows commitment to become wise, because there's a difference between being devoted and being consumed. Devotion says, this matters to me, and I'm willing to keep showing up. Consumption says, this matters to me, so I will sacrifice my entire body, personality, mood, marriage, hydration levels, and possibly dental hygiene until it is resolved. And friends, we are not doing that anymore. Or at least we're trying to do that slightly less. Baby steps. The self-care required to pivot begins with remembering that we are not machines trying to produce outcomes. We are humans trying to build lives. And humans need space. We need sleep. We need food that's not just handfuls of children's snacks eaten over a sink. We need someone safe to hear us say, I don't know what to do, and I am scared that this is not going to work. We need walks and showers and sunshine and silence. We need to stop turning every open pocket of time into an opportunity to think harder. Because thinking harder is not always the answer. Sometimes the answer is feeling. Sometimes the answer is asking for help. Sometimes the answer is letting the dust settle so we can finally see what's been true the whole time. In my case, the truth was I'm not asking for too much. The truth was not that this person doesn't exist. The truth was I'm looking for the right person in the wrong place. And I couldn't have heard that truth while I was still in survival mode. I could only hear it after I put the problem down long enough for my body to exhale. That's what CEO care really is all about. It's not just bubble baths and candles, though. Please know I remain wildly in favor of both. CEO care is how we protect our capacity to lead. It's how we keep our vision from getting distorted by depletion. Because when we're depleted, every pivot looks like a threat. When we're resourced, a pivot can look like possibility. When we're depleted, feedback feels like failure. When we're resourced, feedback becomes information. When we're depleted, changing direction feels humiliating. When we're resourced, changing direction feels creative. And this is the deeper lesson under the pivot. The goal is not to become someone who never hits a wall. The The goal is to become someone who knows how to step back from the wall before repeatedly concussing herself against it in the name of consistency. We need to learn the difference between quitting and pausing, between giving up and gathering ourselves, between abandoning the vision and releasing the specific route. Because sometimes the most powerful thing we can do for the dream is stop chasing it for a day. Not forever, just long enough to come back to ourselves, long enough to remember who we are, long enough to ask, what is still true here? What's working? What's not working? What am I trying to force? What would become obvious if I weren't so exhausted? That last question is the one I want to leave you with. What would become obvious if you weren't so exhausted? Because maybe you don't need to burn the whole thing down. Maybe you don't need to try harder. Maybe you don't need to become a different person. Maybe you just need a nap, a sandwich, a walk, a good cry, a conversation with someone who believes in you, and 24 hours away from the problem. And maybe after that, the pivot will reveal itself, not because you forced it, but because you finally created enough space to hear it. So as we close out this week, I hope you take this with you. Keep going, but don't confuse keeping going with never resting. Stay devoted, but don't let devotion become self-abandonment. Trust the vision, but stay unattached to the exact path. And when you've done everything you know how to do, maybe the next right move is not to push harder, but rather to put it down, care for the human carrying the dream, and let clarity find you there. Because there's no wrong move you can make besides stopping. But pausing might be the very thing that helps you begin again. And with that, we've come to the end of this week's episodes on the Contentment Creator channel, where we explored what it really means to pivot without giving up on the vision. Whether you caught the whole story, the strategy, the practical hiring breakdown, or the deeper reflection on self-care during pivots, thank you for making it all the way to the end. I hope you're subscribed so you don't miss another episode, and I hope this week helps you keep going with a little more courage, clarity, and compassion. Join me in my mission to help a world full of content creators become a world of contentment creators. Bye, y'all.